Hey everybody, this is John for MTGO coming at you with a relatively quick deck overview. This is a long-forgotten tribal deck that used to be seen alongside humans and merfolk and spirits. That is Slivers. Now, Slivers is a kind of beloved hive mind style deck that really builds off of each other even more than other tribal decks. Their synergies, usually they give their abilities to each other creature, but much like other tribal decks, they've run into problems with cards like Fury and Solitude and Unholy Heat and 10,000 other removal spells that Modern now has to offer. So they've kind of fallen off in the wake of Modern Horizons 2, much like 10,000 other different tribal decks. But this one is very interesting, and there are a couple different builds that I was able to find at least one variant of that we'll take a look at. Now the first build is just this very simply 5-color version with Cavern of Souls, Sliver Hive, Unclave Territory, very similar to humans in terms of its build. You have your 12 rainbow lands, you have a couple of basics, some Mutavaults, really try to take advantage of the power of your deck. You're also an Aether Vial deck, and then you get to begin with Gale Ride Sliver being kind of the best one-drop, gives all slivers you control flying. Striking Sliver, all slivers you control have first strike. Sidewinder Sliver, flanking, which is this weird thing that if a creature doesn't have flanking, it gets -1/-1 when it's blocking. Sinew Sliver gives all creatures +1/+1. Predatory Sliver does the same thing, even though they're 1/1s, they're actually 2/2s. Dreadscape Sliver gives things on Earth a way if things are dying, you have a way to bring them back. Leeching Sliver, whenever a sliver you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life. Very similar to a Hellrider-esque effect, except you're not getting life, obviously, but upon declaring attacks, it does cause your opponent to lose life, effectively increasing the power of all your slivers. And then Cloud Shredder Sliver, Gale Rider Sliver with haste. Seems great, right? Sliver creatures you control have flying and haste, makes it very difficult to interact with your opponents, or for your opponents to deal with the creatures, etc. And then you have kind of the grindy package of the deck, and that is first starting off with Unsealed Mariner. Makes removal spells much worse. This can help with annoying things like Furies and Solitudes, making them much more difficult to connect with. Makes it much more difficult for things like Bolt and Unholy Heat to connect. Not impossible, but the taxing effect is relevant. Frantic Sliver, it basically turns everything into a coin flip. If you win the coin flip, it's exiled, returns to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. If you lose the flip, you sacrifice it. So effectively, you're losing nothing. You get a 50-50 shot to save all of your creatures. And then Realm Walker, while not technically a changeling, it does allow you to play off the top of your deck, and is an excellent kind of card advantage / grindy card for the deck whenever it was seeing play. Sideboard, now, obviously this sideboard's a bit dated, but, Chalice of the Void, relevant against the various Cascade decks. Leyline, relevant against graveyard decks. Dismember, when you just need a removal spell. Harmonic Sliver blows up artifacts or enchantments. Now, obviously, this can be a little bit of a downside when you're playing Aether Vial in your own deck, but, unleash this on a Hammer Time deck or an Affinity deck, you're going to have a field day. And then, Damping Matrix, activated abilities of artifacts and creatures can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. Not really a card that sees much play these days, but it does have relevant applications against, decks like Lantern and such. There is one other version that we'll take a look at, and we'll see how it varies a little bit from this one. So this version is built around Sedge Sliver. Now, Sedge Sliver is a really weird one. All slivers have, this creature gets +1/+1 as long as you control Swamp, and all slivers have black, regenerate this permanent. What this does is it really skews your mana base, which is a struggle when you're trying to play the 12 rainbow lands. So if you see this version, you'll see Cavern of Souls and Sliver Hive, but you won't see the Unclaimed Territory. You have a basic Swamp, you have Overgrown Tomb, Watery Grave, basic Forest, and then some amount of Verdant Catacombs. Now, this version's mana base was always historically a good bit worse, but you also, on the plus side, get to play Collected Company along with everything else you have going on. Rest of the slivers we've already kind of taken a look at. Sinew and Muscle giving the heavy lifting. Diffusion Sliver is an interesting one. Whenever a Sliver creature becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless the controller pays 2. So basically Unsettled Mariner for Slivers. Gemhide Sliver turns all of your Slivers into Birds of Paradise. And Mana Weft Sliver kind of does the same thing. Slivers you control. Gemhide is all Slivers. So a little bit of difference if you happen to run into the Sliver mirror. Necrotic Sliver, all Slivers have 3 sacrifice it, vindicate something. Blur Sliver gives everything haste. And then Telekinetic Sliver, all Slivers have tap target permanent, basically turns each Sliver into a mini opposition. And Collected Company kind of ties it all together. Don't know that I would recommend this build, as the mana is very, very stretched, especially casting Collected Company, and you're playing Collected Company in an Aether Vial deck. Never was a huge fan of that non-bow and humans builds or spirits or any of that. So sideboard options, a lot of the same things. Chalice of the Void, great against a myriad of things. You can also play it on 1 or 0 because you have Cavernous Souls and Aether Vial. Sliver Hive Lord, all Slivers you control have Indestructible. Great card against any type of Wrath effects or Destruction effects, etc. Darkheart Sliver, all Slivers have Sacrifice as permanent, you gain 3 life. Great against decks like Burn and other racing situations. Harmonic Sliver, once again, Hammer Time has a bad day. Siphon Sliver, Sliver creatures you control have lifelink. Very good in racing situations, a la Burn. Homing Sliver, each Sliver card in each player's hand has Sliver cycling 3. Which basically allows you to pitch this card and go find a copy of a Sliver you need. Hence why you see some of the bullets in this version. And then Frantic Sliver, we've already kind of talked about. So the power of this deck was just how there's these different abilities built on top of each other. In some ways, it is a harder hitting deck than humans. In some ways, it doesn't have the disruption elements, unfortunately. So this is very much a racing deck trying to get your opponent dead as quickly as possible. Whichever build that saw play, the Sedge Sliver build was kind of the build for the long time, and then eventually just Burn 4-2-0, I believe, was the player. I played against them several times while playing Burn. They would routinely own me because of the various lifelink abilities that Slivers presented, but yeah, this was definitely a tribal deck that built on top of each other, and a lot of older Magic players have a soft spot for Slivers because they're kind of an iconic part of Magic's past. Having been part of Tempest block and I believe Time Spiral block primarily, and then they brought him back again in one of the, I think it was M14, for bring a few new things to the party. Now, there isn't as many, there are other variants of Slivers that see play in Legacy. It used to be a counter, used to be very similar to Merfolk. They'd had this like counter Sliver deck, had a card called Crystalline Sliver that I think gave all Sliver Shroud or something, but I digress. Very much a beloved tribal deck that unfortunately really doesn't see much play anymore. Something we'll have to try to remedy on the channel at some point. Definitely a deck that I want to pick up and play a couple games with. Whether it's good in the Fury, Solitude, Unholy Heat, Ragavan, all that nonsense metagame, kind of hard to say, but certainly a deck that did see play for some amount of time, alongside the tribal decks that have all kind of gone extinct, like humans and spirits and merfolk and whatnot. Since humans and merfolk seem to make a comeback every now and again, maybe Slivers can do the same. But yep, very similar matchup spread. Obviously a weakness for Blood Moon. That said, you still have Aether Vial to play around it a little bit. You have the Mana Dork Slivers potentially, so not completely called to Blood Moon, but it is certainly a card that can hurt. Obviously, the myriad of creature removal. The deck has a bunch of utility in its ETB effects. Harmonic Sliver being able to completely blow up something like Hammer Time if you're given enough time, etc. But deck was a blast to play, at least a blast to watch. I never really particularly played it myself, but like I said, a very powerful tribal deck that we'll hope to bring back from extinction at some point on the channel. If you like these deck guides, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you for our next video.